Good morning, guys. Welcome to the Danger Pit. Let's make some bacon.
Shit.
Morning, guys. Welcome to the Danger Garage. So, it's been 7 days since we took that whole pork belly that I got from the butcher's. We sliced away those baby back ribs. We took them, we seasoned them, we smoked them, and we had them for dinner, and they were delicious. Now, that same day, I took that remaining pork belly, we sliced it down a little bit to tidy it up, I applied a cure to it, and I've left it in my fridge for the week. So in just a second, I'll take you into my kitchen, and I'll show you how we did all that to get it all prepared for today. Now, just before I do that, though, I want to touch on what I think is the most exciting part of this cook, and that's the wood. So, my pals over at Smokewood Shack did a really decent deal on these beechwood splits. Now, I've never cooked with beechwood before. And what's peculiar is I follow a lot of people who do a lot of live fire cooking, and I don't really see beechwood get mentioned very often. As far as the neutral woods go, it's basically oak or gone. Now I took this beechwood and I shaved a couple of shavings off it and started a small fire with it just so I could get a whiff of the aroma to get an understanding of how this bacon's going to taste when we cook it. And yet, it smelled like wood smoke. So it's not going to be until I get a proper fire started with this wood, and then we can really smell how it's going to come out and really taste the end product. I reckon it's going to be delicious. Beechwood, where it doesn't seem really to be that popular here in the UK, over in Germany and the Netherlands, the guys over at Pitmaster X, they use beechwood for almost all of their cooks, and so I assume it's good, but we're going to find out. Something that's worth mentioning, though, is that these splits, obviously they come as full split logs. These are far too big for my tiny smoker, and so unfortunately my good wood saw is broken, and so I'm going to be taking my miter saw to these. I can't imagine for a second that'll cause any problems down the line. But yeah, so let's get inside and let's talk about bacon. Right guys, so first things first, let's dive straight into how I did this cure. Super simple, all it is equal parts salt and brown sugar, and to this I'm going to add some fresh organic maple syrup from this lovely block of maple wood that I had imported from Canada. Now you can just use maple syrup that you buy in the store, that's absolutely fine, but we like it a bit extra here on the Danger Pit. So we're going to mix these three ingredients together, and I'll go into a bit more detail later on in the video about what the cure does, how it works. But essentially at this point we're going to take these pork ribs, we're going to lift them off the pork belly, and this will leave us with just the belly itself ready to trim down, ready to make into bacon. So first things first, we're going to take this pork belly, we're going to flip it over, we're going to stretch it tight across this chopping block, we're not going to get too distracted by the nipples, and then very carefully, starting at one of the corners, we're going to lift away the skin. Now, as we do this, we want to make absolutely sure that we leave as much fat intact as possible. We don't want to lift any away if we can help it. Now, this fat will render down when we're smoking, but this fat will also be present when we're refrying this into bacon in the frying pan, so we want to try and keep it there because fat equals flavour. Now, if you've never done this before, lifting skin from a pork belly can be a little bit tricky, but essentially we're just letting gravity do the work again. So we're pulling the skin up, letting the weight of the pork belly pull itself down, and we're tracing the line in the middle using our knife. Now, if you're careful and you get it all the way to the end, take it all off in one piece, bam, you've got yourself a beautiful piece of pork skin. Now, what you could do is salt this up, throw it in the oven, and cook it down for some crispy crackling if you really want to. Maybe another day. So, I've got myself this lovely skinless piece of pork belly here. Now all I'm going to do is take my knife and I'm going to trim away any of these scraggly edges on the bottom. I'm also going to square off the tops as well, just to try and give it a bit more of a uniform shape. Any of these scrappy pieces which are left over would just end up burning during the smoke, and then they wouldn't end up tasting good when we went to refry the bacon. Just to make a point as well, none of this went to waste. All of these offcuts, I used them in a little bean chili that I made later on in the week. We don't like waste. Right, so the next step, I'm going to take half of the cure that we've made, I'm going to spread it across the top of this pork belly with my hands, making sure to get it in all the nooks and crannies. I probably should have worn gloves when I did this bit because it was sticky and gross, but oh well. So we're going to take this pork roll, we're going to put it inside the Ziploc bag that we've got here, and then once it's in here, we'll turn it over and we'll put the cure on the other side. It's much cleaner and tidier doing it this way. So I'm going to use this time to mention what the different components of the cure will do to this bacon over the 7 days it's going to be inside the fridge. Now, the sugar and the maple syrup are going to add a sweetness to the pork that will accent the already nice, sweet, neutral taste of the pork itself. The salt, however, will act as a drawing agent. Now, at the moment this pork belly weighs around about 3 kilograms. By the time it's sat in the fridge for a week and once we've drained off all of the moisture that this pulls out, it'll probably be looking somewhere in the region of around about 1.5 to 2 kilos. It'll pull that much mass off, and that'll help in the preservation process, and that means that when we cook this bacon, it won't be super juicy, but instead it'll be claggy and fatty, which is what we're looking for when we refry. Wipe it down, get it sealed, use 2 bags. We've made enough mess already. All we need to do from this point is, once a day for the next 7 days, take it out the fridge, give it a flip, and make sure that the cure's on all the surfaces. So 7 days on, I've got this pork out of the fridge now, and I'm going to tip out about 1.5 litres of water that the salt has effectively drawn from inside the meat. Now, as I take it out, you can see just how much mass this has lost. It's a lot smaller in my hand. It's also a lot firmer, and you can see how it's taken on the dark colour of the demerara sugar and the maple syrup, which means it's penetrated deep inside the meat. Now I'm running this under ice cold water and making damn sure I'm getting all of the brine, all of it completely off. We don't want any present when this goes on the fire. Now I'm using a cloth here to dab all of the moisture off the surface of the meat. Ordinarily we need a bit of moisture so that smoke will adhere to anything that we're smoking. However, because this is bacon and the smoke is just accenting this, we need this to be bone dry so that it renders properly. One last thing I need to sort before we're ready to cook. I need to take these splits and get them sawn and chopped down. Now if you guys were watching really closely, you'll see the moment where I nearly broke my ankle then.
Oh, it's going to take longer than I thought.
Now it's worth pointing out that I'm no stranger to woodcraft, and I've used this mitre saw to chop down trees before. I know it's not an ideal piece of kit, but it was really hard getting through this beechwood.
Oh, I really thought this wouldn't be so much work.
So we finally reach a point where we can start building some fires. So I get my coals away started, I get them dumped into my firebox. This starts warming the whole unit through. I'm going to get my splits placed inside so they're ready and warm through for when I'm ready to start cooking. I'm sorry about the heavy breathing. I'd been sawing wood for about 90 minutes all in. Okay, so it's been around about 20 minutes, the unit's nice and hot, my splits are nice and preheated, so I'm going to take them, going to drop them on the coals, just going to lean in, give them a little puff, make sure they're nice and caught. And that's it, we're ready to go.
Yeah, that looks good enough for bacon. Okay guys, fire is ticking by, it's time to get some bacon on. Now as always, as far away from the fire as we can get this. I'm going to cook fat side down. I want as much of that fat to render off as possible. I don't like fatty bacon. Thickest part, I'm going to put this temperature probe probably here. There we go. Put that in there just at an angle. Yeah. That's it. And so yeah, that's about it. So we've got bacon on the pit. It's going to be sitting there for around about an hour and a half or so. I'm going to cook it to 160 degrees Fahrenheit today. If we were cooking something like, say, pulled pork, or if I was cooking this as as a joint of pork belly, rather than slicing it down into bacon. We'd probably cook it to around about 200 degrees Fahrenheit, where it would start to like pull apart and you get like really nice belly pork, pulled pork. But because we're going to take this, we're going to smoke it and then cool it down, chop it into slices, and then fry it again. 160 degrees is roughly an indicator that it's had enough time on the pit to get smoky, but it's not cooked, and then it's not going to turn to mush when I try and heat it up again. So yeah, cheers guys. Yeah, so beechwood, really flammable. Fuck. Yeah, I'll just leave these to sit up there and think about what they've done. This beechwood is well hot. Like significantly hotter than the oak. It gives off way more heat. Ooh, it's not good. I'm going to reintroduce you guys to someone. This piece of wood getting heated up there, that little L-shaped one, right, was the one I basically nearly broke my ankle on trying to stomp on today. Health and safety, guys. Health and safety. Okay, so they say if you're looking, it ain't cooking. But then, if you ain't looking, how are you going to know what it looks like? This is 1 hour. It's looking kind of like bacon. It's not going to get crust, like as if we were doing barbecue or anything. This is just going to be seasoning it. It's quite sticky and tacky though, that's what we want. That's all the sugar. Oh, very good. Go to sleep. Shh. Right, I'm going to go full Robert Baratheon. There we go. Now you think about what you did. Catch it pretty quickly, give it a bit more air. There we go. Perfect. Oh, it's fucking boiling, Jesus Christ. That's way too hot. It's bloody wood going up like a torch. Look at it. Settle down. Honestly, trying to get a feel for this bloody wood. Settle down. We'll have a look. Settle down. God, it's so hot. I'm not sure if I'm a fan of this beach.
It basically took this entire cook for me to get used to the heat cycle of this beechwood. Pound for pound, it gives off way more BTUs than cherry wood, hickory wood, oak, the woods that I usually cook with. Now, this leaves me thinking it doesn't have a particularly pungent or aromatic smoke, so I can use this wood, as it's fairly cheap and available, as the heat source and use wood chunks as the flavour source and stretch out my more expensive woods next cook.
Right guys, so let's have a look and see how the bacon's doing. Yep. That's looking about where we want it. Let's see how we're doing for temperature. We're aiming for 160. Yep. Yeah, there we go, we're cooked. Perfect, let's get this bacon inside.
Okay, so while this bacon's inside and cooling, let's do one quick little recap on the measurements from today. So, before we cured the bacon, we had around about 3 kilos of pork belly. Once the cure had finished, we were left with about 2 kilos and around about a litre, maybe a little bit more of water. Now, the plan was to run the smoker at 225 degrees Fahrenheit. We definitely went over this, but that was the plan. And I ended up pulling between 160 and 170 degrees Fahrenheit in the end. Cool. So, it's cooled down enough that I can handle it, so let's square it off. Yeah, we got some bacon burnt ends. Okay, how are we looking? Yeah, that's looking like bacon to me. We've got a decent smoke ring. Looks nice and bacony. It smells very bacony. Let's have a little try. Oh, it's really nice. Oh man, that's well good. The sweetness really shines through, and it's salty and soft, and oh, yeah, bacon burnt ends. Well, nice. Right, so let's make some strips of bacon and make some bacon sandwiches. So I like my bacon kind of thin, a bit thin. Is that thin? It's about how thick I'm having my bacon. Right, so while I'm getting this chopped down and prepped for my freezer, I thought I might just share with you guys a few thoughts on how I feel this cook went. So yeah, the cure worked really well. The bacon had a beautiful texture and it fried up deliciously. The taste, though, it was a little bit too mild for my taste. The sweetness really shone through, but the smokiness wasn't quite there for me. Now, had I kept the fires running a little bit steadier and cooler from the beginning, would have had more time for smoke penetration and would have had a smokier product at the end of the day. That said, though, this bacon was absolutely delicious. And more importantly, I had an absolute blast making it. And so with that in mind, it's been a pleasure, guys. I look forward to catching up with you in the future, and I'll see you soon.